When I
Okay.
look at other real estate teams in our market or comparatively, and they're not all like this, but they often look at the admin team as like assistants or
Yeah.
secondary to the agent. And that to me is the worst thing you can do. I think we're very conscious of putting the admins on the level field to the agents. They're
Yeah.
part of every team meeting, they're part of almost every conversation about the company, and they're treated with the same recognition as the agents because they're the ones that are going to help make success.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And so we want to make sure we're having the same opportunity conversations and meetings and structures that we would for any agent that we want to be successful.
How do you recruit and retain happy agents? I'm on a mission to answer that question by talking with the unsung heroes that empower real estate agents. I'm Seth Price. Tune in each week as I sit down with back office heroes to learn what's working and what's not. Welcome. I'm super excited to have you, and I have known about you for some time, I believe through Lee and certainly through Amy. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here and I'm so excited.
So, I was talking to you before. I wanted to frame this. I'm really fascinated by what it takes to support successful agents, like all of the work that goes on behind the scenes. So before we start, can you tell me a little bit about, your org, how many agents you guys have on your team? What's the back office team look like as well? That would be great to start.
Yeah, for sure. So we are North Group Real Estate. We are in Toronto, Canada, currently in lockdown with a thriving real estate market. We have about 5 operations staff. That's our admin staff that support a team of about 12 agents. We are growing quite quickly. And we do on average about our average agent is about $150,000 to $200,000 net GCI to themselves, as well as our top agents are doing about $300,000 to $400,000 net GCI. Canada, we often talk about GCI versus sales volume. So I know sales volume wise, we're about 120 million a year.
That's awesome. It's interesting because, of course, on the team realm, there's the opportunity to be laser focused on I'll say a profile of an agent.
Yeah.
How were you guys able to consistently recruit in that high performing world? Like what's your value prop when you're recruiting agents?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question because I think that this is the perfect kind of setup for what we're talking about today, and that the whole back end is to empower the agent. So our whole model when we talk about someone coming on our team is that we have a slogan called experiences worth talking about. And that's, if we create experiences worth talking about for our agents, then they'll create it for our team. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to support a top producing agent that wants to be an entrepreneur, has all the skill sets to be an entrepreneur, has probably made it to a certain point, now just wants to plug into the systems marketing. We're a very different team in that we don't structure it as here's the recruiting numbers, or here's the call numbers that you have to make. Here's all the hours you have to work. We want entrepreneurs. We want successful people. And we're about the marketing. We're about the service. And I think that that's what attracts top producing agents.
And so tell me a little bit about, you said you have 5 folks in ops. What's the breakdown of those folks? What are their roles?
Yeah, so we try to keep everyone really laser focused on a specific area of the business. So we have someone focused on marketing completely. And I think that's really important to us. Obviously, that's a huge part of our value prop. That's what agents need and want. Then we have transaction coordination, which is to take in from the back end once the deal is completed. And we're full service. We do everything from the client communication, condition reminders, everything in between. It's not a brokerage model. It's very very hands-on with the clients. Then we have a listing coordinator who takes care of the front end, as well as myself as the operations director, client services who kind of fills in the gaps, and then a sales director who is responsible for lead generation, making sure that we are getting deals for our leads, and then obviously accountability for our agents.
That's awesome. I mean, it's almost like you get to be this independent machine, which is, one of the challenges on the broker side is that you sort of have this, I'll say, wide swath of talent and skill set and experience with agents. And so you have to serve everyone. But you guys are, in many instances, I'd say cherry picking folks that are really motivated. When you talk about the marketing piece, what types of things are you doing for them that they can't do themselves or don't want to do themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because we try to avoid being templated. I think that's the problem with a team versus a brokerage. And that's one of our strongest value props is that we can do some customization. And we're not doing it to the point that we can't scale. We're not sitting there and creating a new brand piece for every single agent, but we are doing things that matter. And so all of our property brochures, for instance, are custom curated for that specific property and for that agent's taste. We will co-brand with the agent's brand. And I think that that's a really unique piece is that we're kind of like powered by North Group. Most of our agents actually choose just to follow what the North Group brand is because it's pretty well known and it has that clout. But those agents that want to keep their own self-sustained brand, they can. Agents on our team have their own website, they have their own logos, they have whatever they want. And as long as we keep obviously the overhead of compliance, we let them do that and we lean into that with them. We run social media workshops, we give them the ability to kind of have sub pages within our web pages. We take what we're good at and show them how rather than having them kind of plug into what is offered.
Yeah. And do you find that this is maybe a strange way to say it. Are they pulling you? Like, are they asking you for lots of things? Or are you offering and then you find that they're picking from what you offer, some percentage of those folks?
Yeah, I don't find that they're pulling too much. And I think that's like, we look at that as an opportunity to level up. So for instance, we just recruited an agent that really, really wanted his signs to look differently. And we didn't take that as a challenge. We go, okay, if this agent who's a top producing agent wants a different sign on the lawn, why are we going to fight that? Because that's an opportunity for us. How can we work this into a scalable level where it doesn't get out of control? We still protect our brand and then level up. And so, I think we look at almost everything we do as a partnership. I think it comes down to our name. We're not the Amy Youngren brand. It's not around a specific realtor growing kind of their own personal net worth. It is about kind of becoming more so a marketing partnership, client services piece that powers agents. Yeah.
And do you guys, when you think about the sort of marketing that you do for agents, is there a limit? Like, are there things you won't do?
I think we just have really clear conversations. I think we do want to protect the brand, and I think that that's important. But when people join our team, they're not trying to recreate it, and I think you have to be really careful about who you bring on the team and keep the culture and keep the understanding of what we're trying to do. And we have really candid conversations about that. We want to be recognized for the North Group brand, but that's not to cannibalize your own personal brand, because then agents leave once they get to a certain level of success because they can do it on their own or they want to do it on their own. So there's not really limits per se. It's just, I think we just watch how quickly we scale it or the speed in which we answer requests.
Yeah. How do you manage I'll say the interplay between the agent and the admin and whoever, all the teammates? How do you manage that? Because I know that can be, there's certainly a time issue, right? The operations folks work scheduled hours and agents are, anytime they have an inkling for a need, they're going to be on their device. How do you guys do that?
And that's the most difficult relationship there is. Like, as a staff person and the staff on our team, they're 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Our agents are very much not 9 to 5. And the answer isn't to compromise their schedule and respond at all hours, because that causes frustration and it doesn't grow a healthy, happy team. We really concentrate the hours they are working to make sense of that relationship. And so first is it's great communication between everyone. And so we use Slack. Slack is obviously the best. We wouldn't survive without Slack. And it's just, but we have kind of structures and policies in place for it. It's not just random messages here and there. It's organized in such a way that it would be about buyers and sellers, and with specific team members are part of specific channels, but also requests are entered in a certain way. Technology is one of those things that people don't realize the capacity. And I obviously everyone knows how great technology is, but there's so much you can do to standardize process with technology. And we use that to help that relationship go. So for instance, Slack has workflows. So if they want paperwork completed or anything, they just use a workflow in Slack, which creates a form for them. Then we get it within reasonable hours and can respond to it. It creates clarity and communication. And to level up on that, just forms. There's a lot of forms that happen, and it doesn't replace that relationship between the agent and the admin, because otherwise they would just do it themselves. But it does allow for clarity in what the ask is and clarity in the process. And I think as long as that's set in place, you're fine. We have a ton of systems on the back end that we use. We use Asana as our project management tool, great CRMs. All of those tools kind of work together. And then what happens is we kind of prep it for the agent to see it at the end. They don't get involved with 90% of the systems we use. Okay. And that keeps everyone sane.
Yeah. And I'm curious about, I've been thinking about this, about the ticketing. So let's say someone submits with a workflow, completes a form because they want something done. What do you use as the ticketing system for that? Like, how do you keep track? How do you assign it to someone? Is that through Asana?
Yeah, so we use Asana, but I mean, there's so many project management tools out there. So it's not even like I would die on the Asana mountain, but we use Asana. So if you were to submit it, it's like Zapier is a great kind of API connecting app. And you can go on Upwork or Fiverr and find someone that's way smarter than I am to connect it all, but it's really not hard to connect a lot of systems. And so as long as you kind of have the same fields in there, you can do that. So we know when there's a kind of a something that comes through, it then merges with our Asana, we create it. Then what we do too is just practically, we kind of make sure that we run it in a corporate kind of structure. Every morning, all staff are required to give their priorities for the day, because the thing with real estate is you don't come into a clean slate of what you're going to do each day. There may be an offer that comes in or paperwork that comes in that will change your priorities completely. But as long as we set that at the beginning of the day, then we can adjust and kind of keep in clear communication. And that's all done through Slack. Yeah.
And how do you think about performance of your team, of the ops team? Like, how do you, like, we have OKRs. I don't know if you use OKRs. Or what do you determine is a good player on the back office team or the ops team? And what is signals for, hey, need an improvement, or maybe you need to swap them out? How do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think, well, first off, with using task management software, you're able to create ownership of a task. And I think that that's the most important thing for any functioning ops team, especially when you grow beyond one person, is that who is owning that task, because then you can give them the ultimate responsibility. It's not kind of pointing flags at who's responsible for what. So for me, success would be that they could take complete ownership of what's coming in and what's assigned to them, and then also take initiative for the environment outside of that. So we have a weekly ops meeting just for the ops team that we don't talk about tasks. It's not about what's going on. We talk about the goals that they have for themselves and how they're going to improve systems or processes. And we also have like an open kind of, it's an Asana project, but it's a roadblock list. And so what they're responsible for doing is coming into that meeting with whatever roadblocks they have that week, so that they have accountability for their role. If they know what is causing them issues, or they can critically think of the process, then we're all working together. That didn't really answer your question about performance, but it does kind of lean into how we look at the success. I think we have goal setting that everyone does. And we look at it that way, because it's not as clean as looking at an agent where you can go, you're making your numbers or you're not.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely, I think in any scenario when you're working with teammates and you're trying to figure out against their goals, I mean, one, they're the soft skills, like if people communicate well and they're respectful of others, so that's great. Then is their performance, and then how do you think about, do you do quarterly reviews? Like, how do you give them feedback?
Yeah, we absolutely do quarterly reviews. We do kind of when someone starts, we do. I believe this is a Keller Williams thing, but it could be, I don't know where it plucked from. But the first 100 days is what our agents go through, and we really feel strongly about that onboarding process. And we look at the exact same for the admin team. When I look at other real estate teams in our market or comparatively, and they're not all like this, but they often look at the admin team as like assistants or secondary to the agent. And that to me is the worst thing you can do. I think we're very conscious of putting the admins on the level field to the agents. They're part of every team meeting. They're part of almost every conversation about the company, and they're treated with the same recognition as the agents because they're the ones that are going to help make success. And I believe that. And so we want to make sure we're having the same opportunity conversations and meetings and structures that we would for any agent that we want to be successful.
So tell me, you mentioned something there, the 100 days of onboarding. So I'm familiar with a few different versions, but I'm familiar with the KW one. How do you guys utilize that with a new agent? What does onboarding look like there?
Yeah. So for agents and admin, it's obviously different. But for an agent, when you're coming in, the first 30 days is really critical on just like hands-on training. At this point, we haven't offloaded it to a lot of videos or training. We actually go through a series where the first 3 weeks is divided. So the first week is kind of operations, setting up your lead gen, doing different kind of objectives there. And then we have links to different resources and connecting with the right people. And then the second week is buyers, where they're going into a series. Like we have a very, very long mapped out kind of thing that they will go through. And we take the leaders of our team to do that. So it would be like it would be anything to do with like how to write an offer to whatever it is. And the important thing is back to what I said, who we recruit on the agent, we're not really recruiting brand new agents. And that was a conscious decision for us. So our training is not brand new agent training. It's how to elevate what you're currently doing. And for the admin team, it's treated the same way. We kind of segment the different things that they'll learn. They don't learn about how to process a seller deal until they've mastered buyer deals. We do really try to cross-train everyone. It's a small team. You have to, but you also have to make sure everyone understands the language.
And do you, in thinking about that onboarding, are you mostly having transfers that come in? So they're at an existing brokerage?
Yeah, I would say about 90%. If someone is a brand new agent on our team, and again, that's a completely different model and we're not against it, but they have to have the sales experience. We kind of, on our leadership team, we have what we call the avatar of North Group, which would be, they have at least 2 years of sales experience or at least 6 months in the industry with proven kind of skill set. Because to equip your team with the capacity to take on a new agent while serving the high level of agents that we have, those are two different kind of back ends. And so we've done it before, but we've made a really conscious decision, and that may change. But at this point, we know our objectives is to grow kind of deep rather than wide. And that's where we're focused on. Without neglecting that we still want to grow to be able to do things and scale and offer and marketing.
When your ratio of support staff to agent is really high.
Yeah.
How do you, I'm assuming because the market is great, that economically is working for you. Do you foresee keeping that same ratio? So if you decided to double the number of agents, would you double the number of admin or would you do something different?
That's a really fantastic question. So we actually scaled the staff with the anticipation of scaling our agents. So when we looked at it, our objective is to have 6 more agents by the end of the year. That's a conscious decision to know because we completely remodeled our split model with the intention of growing high producing agents powered by North Group, knowing what what would kind of compete in a market where our Toronto has 60,000 agents, which is insane. And
Yeah.
so we know it's competitive. And what we know is that most of the successful agents don't want or need a team. So what can we offer them that's going to empower them?
Yeah.
And so with the staff, we've brought that on with the intention of knowing that my role has to kind of step out of it to more of a recruiting operations growth role. And they're more focused on the function because we have a really solid structure. Now it's just set and repeat. And we've done it in the past. There is a bit of a backstory with us on our team is that we were bigger. We had expansion teams, but our real estate board did not allow them in Canada. So we got shut down. So then we became a sub brokerage and are kind of pivoting from that.
And did you have to change the scale of your back office team when you did that as well, or?
Yeah, we did. Well, I think the thing is like when you're growing fast, you learn a lot. And the back office team, we made a decision to go quite small, and we're slowly scaling back up, but in a much, much different way. So I think what the issue was when we were growing our team is that we kind of became the yes people. Whatever the agents wanted, we found a person to supplement for that. And I think that happens a lot with growth is that you just find a person to be able to do that. And then you're not critically looking at what is going to serve or scale. So I think the answer for us is we spent a long time in systems. I think we were customizing every template, every email, everything that was going on. And it was a little bit of chaos where you were kind of having a personal assistant per agent. And so now with our ratio, it's not because we want to offer a personal assistant experience to the agent, because that's a dangerous game to play, I think. But it is to be able to offer an excellent experience, offer a non-rushed or non-brokerage experience, but in a scalable manner.
Yeah. It's hard to say no. How do you guys say no? Like, if you're not going to be the yes people and still provide great service, how do you bridge that gap? Because I think that's something that a lot of ops folks struggle with, which is, the agent is the customer and they want something. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think setting expectations up front has been really good. We have really great systems that allow the agents to know what to expect. And then we have to deliver on what we promise, but we can fall back on this saying, we've promised this. That's what we're able to do. And I think so things that help us with that are obviously we have like a checklist for everything. And do I think the agents read the checklist? No, but at least it gives a structure for knowing what the process is. And so even with requesting paperwork, it goes through a form so that there's the same expectations, and the form kind of tells them what to expect. When they're onboarding, everything is in a platform. We use one called Thinkific. It's a course platform that allows you to click through. It's just all very clear.
I didn't hear that.
It's called Thinkific. It's a course platform. Yeah. So we use that. I mean, again, we're in the process of building our own internet to replace that. But the point I'm making is that it's all really clear of process and expectations. And if we can set that up front, then no one's really coming in with like absurd expectations. Yeah. And then there's nothing that replaces just a conversation. I think that is one of the things that we've learned as we grow is that sometimes just getting in front of someone and being like, hey, I can tell you're frustrated, or I can tell we're not meeting your needs. What will help you? And we do that often. And it's not a scheduled thing. It's not something that we go, okay, every so often we're going to meet with so-and-so and ask them what they think, but it does make them feel like partners because that's what they are.
And that's what they want, most likely.
Yeah. Well, and they get heard.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about why are you guys building an intranet? Do you have a knowledge base now?
Yeah. So everything we do right now is in Google Docs, and that's functioning okay, but it is like that's an operations type interface that is built for operations staff to be able to keep their files organized and keep it really nice and clean. It is not built for agents. There's no clarity in it. So right now we're working within the Google Sites interface just because it's really easy. It's free with our Google platform, and it merges what we have into from the Google Docs into like a more visual aspect. We've kind of made a conscious decision to move everything into more visual. Agents, not to stereotype, are typically more visual people. So we're using Google Sites and Google Data Studio for our sales tracking. You kind of can do so much with that. That being said, long-term goal would be to have a more sophisticated internet, but baby steps.
What I'm curious just about that in general. If you, let's dream a little bit, what would you want that to do? That more sophisticated internet?
Oh, for sure. So I think that the first would be just to have access to everything at their fingertips, but to have kind of to have a better communication system, not to replace Slack or anything like that. But a great example would be every Friday, I send a team kind of company update email. To have that kind of serve everyone in a hotspot that they can go to would be fantastic. To have the team calendar in the same place with links to deals, to have kind of just cohesion between everything you can do. I think the issue right now is that we're using about 7 different systems to get the job done. If we can kind of consolidate it into one, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. And are you just to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, on the knowledge base that you use in Google Docs, you're then sharing those checklists and pieces of information, you're sharing that through Slack to folks if they have a question. How does that get disseminated?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the Slack stuff is done through workflows. And so they have kind of these automation workflows where you can kind of do the form will come up at the bottom. They're not complicated to set up, but you can hire a developer to get it much more sophisticated. So if you really want to nerd out, you can do that. But a lot of times it's just done to Google. It goes right to the agents, and it's quite simple. But I think when I look at what makes our Google effective to date would be that it's done really nicely. Like the spreadsheets aren't just a spreadsheet. They were really conscious about the visual and keeping it with the brand. And it gets audited a couple of times before it goes in front of the agent. It's not just like we just dump some information in a Google Doc and send it off. By the end of it, it barely looks like a Google Doc.
Yeah. And are you finding when I think about the number of questions that agents ask to the broker or whoever the head of your operations, how do you, I know you have your stand-up. So if I can just parrot this back, you have a stand-up every day with the ops team. You're like, hey, well, what's your priorities? Everyone talks about that. Of course, there are fire drills. And then there's a stream of incoming requests. How do you manage that with your existing workload? Like, is there a point person that takes on?
Yeah, it comes down to kind of ownership. And so we know, so even if there's requests that come in during the day, they're specifically kind of categorize the request, and different people are responsible for different. And that it's as simple as that is when they come in, they get categorized. When the requests come in, they have in Slack, we use, and I feel like I'm hammering down Slack. I swear we use way more programs, but
no, it's totally fine.
We just organize the feed in which it's coming through. So if it's a broker related question, it will go in that type of channel. If it's about their deal, we have specific channels that are related to their deal. So what we do on our team is the agents get their own channel and their own kind of folder and everything specific to that deal and client. And it keeps the thought process of organization really simple. Okay. And it correlates to a matching Asana checklist that's from start to finish, has everything you possibly need. And we do have just kind of with our team, it is kind of, you can ask anyone type of mentality, but we're really conscious. Like we have a who's who that we work on through the onboarding. Is kind of a visual doc of being like, if you have this question, this is the person you go to. If you have this question, you go to this person. And if you can provide clarity to that, it keeps everyone kind of stress-free for the most part.
Do any of your agents have VAs as well?
Yeah. So one of our agents, one of our senior partners has their own VA,
Yeah.
and that's to help them more so on the personal side. So accounting and just various different things. We offer a pretty comprehensive approach to our agents. And I think that that has made the difference in that from start to finish, we're organizing almost every aspect of their deal. So if they're looking for external support, it's typically more so on personal and accounting purposes, not
Yeah.
client related focused.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that our agents kind of next support would be more so runner services and just last minute kind of personal tasks. But we're pretty organized. We've spent the past 4 years building a list to close process and I say that with knowing that it's also for buyer deals, for leases, for sellers, that kind of every single scenario we've ever placed is built into this spreadsheet. Or not, it's not a spreadsheet, it's a project management in Asana, but any single scenario that we've ever gone through, we have an approach to it. So we're kind of trying to proactively avoid any questions or any headaches or any kind of last minute things. So if someone's responsible for that, there's very little need for additional support, and nobody needs it at this point.
Yeah. So I've got lots of questions with what you just said. Let me continue down the VA question. You mentioned to me that you sometimes use VAs to expand capacity of your team. How do you utilize them?
Yeah, so they're not agent specific. And I mean, long term, that is something we're exploring. So I don't want to crush on it because you could talk to me in a year and I'll be like, look it up. We all have VAs. But right now, our VAs come in and they help supplement kind of the in between. So if there's a backlog with paperwork, so for instance, we know that we want to offer as much service to the agent without replacing their job. So what we do is we plug in the VAs to help support when there are weaknesses. And so weaknesses would happen when there's a series of paperwork that needs to get done and we need support. Or for instance, we offer paperwork creation for our agents. And so the VAs will come in and field those requests as they come in. They kind of do task-based things where their overload is there. So they don't have a lot of direct communication with the agents, but VAs are fantastic. They're a great asset to be able to supplement the process is how I look at them.
And do you, when you said you talked about paperwork, but I glazed over, what types of things when there would be a backlog and who would have that backlog?
Yeah, so it's more so compliance things. So for instance, we have FINTRAC identification forms where we get someone's ID and have to fill in the ID. So that's kind of stuff that the agents will typically never do. It's just a reality. And so those are things that we can get the information, and we basically have a client intake form that will give it from the client. We're really good at trying to get information from the clients, because I think that the challenging part about real estate is you get information all at different times. And I think the operations job is to try and consolidate and funnel that and organize that and try to get it all in a succinct manner. And so that comes through great emails, comes through great communication, great forms. And then the VA can take that information and fill it in. So when there's a backlog of paperwork, it would be more so if there's a high deal kind of intake, then there would be a lot of like the supplementary paperwork that isn't necessarily going to change the fiduciary duty of the agent, but it will help move the compliance along.
Yeah. When you, the level of attention to detail required is really, really high. Like, I'm a horrible checklist person, and I'm surrounded by people that are very good checklist people. So thank God. But how do you hire or recruit for that role? Because it's not everyone can do it. What do you look for?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that we are looking for checklist type people, but checklist type people with the confidence and charisma to work with a non-checklist type person. And I think that that's the balance that you need to find, is because you need to be able to have someone that can understand that checklist, go through it, know exactly what's going on with a situation or a deal, but then be able to communicate it with our team partners or a client who isn't necessarily a checklist person. You can't take your checklist of missing items for a listing going up the next day and just dump it on the agent. It would never work. They're not going to answer you that way. So you have to find curated ways to go, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone and just ask them these questions, or I'm going to use our Slack to get the answers we need. And so that requires someone that can kind of balance both. So the first thing we look for is someone that is that thrives on organization and checklists. And so there's when we recruit someone, everyone goes through a skill testing assessment.
Okay.
There's a million ones online. We like one by Total Testing.
Okay.
It basically takes you through skill sets, and it curates whether they have a certain attention to detail. It gives you a bunch of sentences to pick up. It's the most annoying test anyone will ever do, but it does kind of differentiate those people that can talk a good talk versus not. But then it comes down to the interview. So we do quite a lot of interviews for anyone that joins our team, including agents. And what they go through is they go through an interview with me, and probably a second interview with me, and then one with our leadership team as well. And so what that does is allows them to have different conversations, and see where they want to go. We typically don't look for someone that wants to become a real estate agent. And I think that's not, it's more so a personality thing. But when I interview someone for the admin,
I don't know whether that's good or bad. That's good. That's
I know. But it's because they look at it differently. So when I interview someone and they want to become a real estate agent, that indicates to me that they enjoy people, they enjoy sales, which is fantastic, but they typically will die in the back end. Someone that thrives in checklist, it's just true. And I mean, there are exceptions, but you just have to ask. It doesn't necessarily mean when you're interviewing them that they don't want to, or that they actually want to come be a real estate agent. I think that sometimes it comes down to the fact that they want the opportunity and the financial compensation that comes with being a real estate agent. So if you can pry a little in that interview and figure out, okay, they just want that opportunity and financial compensation. If I can build them that security within the back end, they might be a right fit. And we look for goal setters. We look for obviously the standard, like proven kind of success in there, but there has to be a right cultural fit. We, on our team, we have a cultural code, which is relationships over transactions, integrity. We value education, and those type of things are what we look for in who we hire. And you kind of like, there's an it factor, you know it. They think when you talk to someone.
How's your turnover been on the ops side?
I've been with the team for 6 years. We've grown quite a lot. We have really good retention. And I think that comes back to the fact that we treat our team members on the equal level of our agents. I think at the beginning, we made the wrong hires. And I think everyone has that story of the wrong hires, but we weren't clear on what roles we needed to do. We kind of just dumped everything on on a specific person and was like, you'll take care of transactions, without being very explicitly clear with what that meant. And so with systems and processes in place, with a checklist of start to finish, it's one of those things where there is very clear ownership and expectations. With constant communication with someone, they know what they're expected to do. I think anyone can be successful if they are enjoying what they do and feel like there's an opportunity there, then obviously have the skill set to do it, but hopefully you've qualified that before they come in the door. So we have a great team and we're really, I hope they're happy. I think they're happy.
We'll find out. I'm curious. It sounds like you made a lot of changes over the years. What's in store, or what's on your sort of dream list for, I'll say, systems and tools and operations for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing would be to implement that internet. And then the next thing for us is we're moving on to a really great sales trackers. So I truly believe that you can't measure success without some sort of indicators, as we talked about the KPIs. And for our agents, that comes down to their numbers. And I think The problem with brokerage reporting is that it's often after the fact, or it's not really in tune with the team.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we built our own sales tracker that is very much in tune with the team and how they think and what they want to see, and what we'll track against their goals. We kind of measured it against their specific goals for a quarter, for the year, and we built that out in Google Data Studio. And so that's kind of where I'm really leaning into systems wise. And then a longer term, I just want to make sure that we keep working on streamlining. So kind of integrating those pieces of communication consistently. My dream list would be to have a program that we kind of can plug in everything. I feel like we're still kind of piecemealing some of it together, but I'm also the most critical. And I think a lot of people looking at our systems are pretty impressed.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you're building in Data Studio for the sales tracker?
Yeah, for sure. So basically what it is, and it's almost done, is we were using a Google Sheet for all of our sales tracker entries. And there's a million systems that sales track quite well. So don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But for what we wanted something that is tracking very specific. So we want like area specific, we want agent specific, we want them to be able to see each other's numbers. And so what we decided was just to build it ourselves. Previously, we had a Google Sheet with different kind of scripts that would lead into each agent's individual dashboard. Then they came out with Data Studio, which is a much superior visual on what it would be. And so basically each of our agents get their own dashboard, and it kind of has different subtasks, where one is the main dashboard that shows them written versus their close, their sales volume, their averages. Yeah. So I think the averages are really important, because someone can be like, I do this amount of business, but if you can see, you can see, oh, you know what, you discount your commission every single time. I think when you can kind of accumulate this into visuals, it's really helpful for everyone. And then there's visuals, right? There's bar graphs and everything like that, but not in a complicated manner. And I think that's the key. And then obviously it's broken down to written, closed, a deal list, so that they can see their clients. It's the visual. They can see the splits on the team. And then finally, it's the team leaderboard. So we made a conscious decision to open our books and open the numbers. And so everyone on our team knows exactly where everyone's at, what their volume is, what their GCI is written. And that's been really fun, because everyone's super competitive with each other.
Interesting. Okay. I wonder is there anyone that's pushed back on that?
No, not yet. And I mean, I think, again, setting expectations up front, like we know what everyone on our team, we have a benchmark about at least $100,000 net to them. Everyone obviously exceeds that, but they know what they're getting into signing up. Like there's not a lot of curtains on our team. Like everything's an open conversation. There's feedback. And so they already are in that culture. And when they're in that culture and we have open conversations, it's really easy to roll something out, because you're not making anyone uncomfortable. Everyone's thinking the same way.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting, the concept of having everyone's numbers open.
Yeah.
Do you find that you see a change in performance? Let's say the splits, or not the splits, the commission or discounting commission. Does that change when someone sees it?
I think what it does is it helps inspire people that are close. The challenge is if someone is really struggling, it's that mindset of like kicking them while they're down. And so we're really conscious of that, to watch kind of if someone is having a rough month or a rough go, to try and bring them up and elevate them so that they don't feel like they're so far off from the top. Yeah. But when you're getting into that middle zone, the competition is insane. The amount of times they're checking and refreshing their data, and they've always done this, is hilarious. And I think that competition drives people, and especially someone that is in the personality that is a top producing agent, they want to be the best, right? And so the competition is really funny, but we also reinforce it. What we do on our team every month is have a top producer. We celebrate them on social media, and that kind of quantifies it for them. It makes it worth more than just like a team accolade. It makes it something that their friends, family, network can see, and that really drove the change, that social reinforcement.
Yeah, I love that. Is besides the monthly, do you do anything year end for awards or, acknowledgement?
Yeah, so we do a mid-year kind of top producers, the top three, and then an end of year as well.
Yeah.
And then we also do like fun social awards, like our Christmas party. We always do we just try to do like those fun social, like whatever specific to that person. But we definitely acknowledge throughout the year. And then Keller Williams also will acknowledge, but we try to, we keep kind of internal on our team, and we do that amongst the team. We also celebrate every win, the smallest of wins. And we use Slack to reinforce that, and just obviously social media and whatever it is. But anytime someone does a deal, it's mandatory that they celebrate in our team Slack channel. There is no business that gets done that the whole team doesn't know about. And we celebrate the smallest of deals versus the biggest of deals with the same enthusiasm. And that took a while to drive that culture in. It takes a while to get people to kind of do that, because I think agents have a tendency to go, oh, well, it's not as big as so-and-so's deal. And you know what I mean? And self-deprecate. And so I think that when we can show the support and growth as a team, then we do that. So the award recognition and the recognition in general is really important. And it's not just about deals. If someone that they were hustling at the office, or they lost 10 offer presentations, we talk about it.
Yeah.
And then we also do kind of a weekly roundup on our team meeting. And I think that's really important too, because then it starts the dialogue, and it starts kind of the collaboration on how to handle different situations.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You are fostering a little bit of competitiveness, but also I think that transparency is probably super helpful for everyone involved.
And that's what we kind of say about joining a team, is that you have people in your corner. It's competition, but it's everyone wants each other to do well. And we keep the language of if the team thrives, we all thrive. There's a reason we want to be the top team. It's because it gives opportunity. And if everyone understands that, then you don't get toxicity.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of systems. Of course, we've mentioned Slack a lot because that's probably the most used day-to-day concept.
Kind of the hub.
Yeah, it's kind of the hub. What are your top one or two systems that if you could only focus on one or two, what are the central things for you?
Yeah. Do you mean to improve on, or that we wouldn't survive without?
You wouldn't survive without.
Okay. Yeah. So I think for us, it's Slack. And I think it's funny because when I talk about Slack, and then I'll see another real estate using that, and I go, you guys are not using it the same way we are using it. And I think that that's what makes it so successful, is how we've set it up. So we definitely, we have kind of leaders or team players in the team, which are tasked with bringing energy to that Slack. I could talk about it all day, but I think when COVID hit and everyone had to kind of work from home, literally nothing changed with how our team culture worked. And I don't even mean that dramatically.
Yeah.
Because we had such a strong pulse and communication virtually, it really didn't change anything, because our Slack channel buzzes from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., probably actually 2 a.m. sometimes. Yeah. And it's because people want to feel connected. There's a natural human nature to feel that relationship, and to have a system that is able to collaborate that is awesome. But the difference is you can't just make it about a specific deal or a specific question. It's not a question-based system. It's to be able to collaborate and use that effectively. And so there's memes in there, there's jokes, there's just updates. There's even Amy was really conscious of putting kind of mentorship in there. So she'll kind of do a recap or a great article or a great thought-provoking kind of comment or paragraph sometimes of what she's thinking, just to inspire people or pick them up when they're down. And I think that is really important. You have to kind of use it as that leadership tool. Yeah. And then for the ops team, it's Asana, because they work well together. Okay. I believe it could be any project management software. And so there's some great ones. There's great ones out there, obviously, that work great with your CRM. We just like Asana because what I look for is, does a task have an owner? Does it have accountability to someone? Does it have dates? And does it have the ability to communicate and adapt with what you're doing? So that's why I like Asana, is because you can have kind of the template, but then it's customizable. It because you can have systems that completely replace everything we do.
Yeah.
That's the fact about operations and real estate is like 90% of it could be a system that gets replaced or that replaces people. And then you have kind of VAs that automate it or people that just automate it. What I'd like to keep is that human element in that process. And I think that it's difficult to find a system that works with both.
Yeah. Tell me, lastly, if you look back on when you started and knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
Oh my God, we could write a book. I think when I look back to when I first started, so when I first started, it was just myself and Amy Youngrim, and I was her first hire. And we always talk about it. We literally just talked about this yesterday about how we're completely different people. And the biggest one is communication. When there's a breakdown in communication between you and the ops team and the leader, the ops team and the agents and each other, everything else falls apart. And so to fix your communication. And so the first is structured meetings. And I think when I look at the ops team and the relationship with the agent, it starts with obviously the leadership team or the innovator or the rainmaker, someone that's the leader of that. They can only operate with what they understand to be operating in. So they need to be clear on their vision and where you're going. So with us, the biggest difference was having really structured weekly operations meetings. And that's not a task-based meeting. It's to go and move the needle, move things along. Yeah. Real estate agents hate, and I keep stereotyping, this is such an admin type
thing. They're not listening.
Us versus them, but they tend to hate structured meetings because they do that with their clients. And then the ops team, they're like, okay, let's just get through, let's process deals. And it's less about the growth. It's less about what's going to move the company along. And they're so focused on the day-to-day or the growth, but it's so in like a grand scheme of like, we're going to get to 500 agents and we're going to do this rather than like, what are the 4 pillars we need to work on? Yeah. So communication is first, and making sure that you have effective things set up, making sure you're checking in like with each other. Yeah. And then I think for the other thing is to just really, really stay true to what your kind of core for, or is what we call it, but your purpose is. And that's like every business book you'll ever read, but in action, it's so much more difficult to do, especially real estate has so many bells and whistles. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Everyone has a different model, a different split, and everyone has the next best thing, the next best brokerage, the next best CRM. And so it's really easy to get distracted. And so for us, what we did is it's a graphic. It's very clear. We go, what are our 4 core principles that we're focusing on? Yeah. And then every kind of meeting comes back to that. It's the most disciplined thing you'll ever have to do because it's one of those things that it's more ideology. Yeah. Like, so for us, it's profit is everything we're doing in a profit first mentality. It's recruitment and growth. So we're going to get 6 agents by the end of the year. It's experience because that's our slogan. Does it contribute to an experience we're talking about for our agents or our clients? Those are the type of things where we balance and go, okay, every time we implement something. So if you see something like so-and-so had a great social media post or they're doing a great event, should we do it? Then you can kind of have a guide path for you.
Yeah. Does it fit into the framework that you put together? Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you being so open about what you guys do. Thank you so much. And I hope when this craziness calms down, we actually get to go back to conferences and see people in person again. I think that would be awesome.
I truly hope so too. I can't wait for normalcy. I thank you so much for your time. Thanks for having me. It was
Bye, Sara.
Thank you.